Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, previously we have discussed about this nature of human existence from the perspective of Islamic spirituality. And we have discussed this model which we extracted from the definition of our nature, of ourself, our qalb, our ruh, our akal, and our jasad, and our nafs, an extrapolation from the words of Al-Imam Ghazali and Ibn al-Qayyim, Ibn Sina, and many other scholars. We have summarized it in a graphical form of what we understand as this spiritual realm and the physical realm, which consists of the qalb, the ruh, the akal, the nafs, and the jasad that exist in this world. And in the world of Azali, in the realm before we existed in the physical world, we have our qalb, ruh, akal, and that is our nafs. So our basis of Islamic psychology and our basis of therapy, positive Islamic cognitive behavior therapy that we are developing must always be based on the psycho-spiritual basis for Islamic psychology. That means we must always go back to the spiritual realm. And to understand this, we have to go back to our scholars. And once we understand the scholars and can reinterpret their ideas insofar as, for example, the loci of control based on the writings of our scholars is our qalb, not our brain. So, for example, like cognitive behavior therapy, the word cognitive itself means brain, be all and end all. So it is just the brain, your brain, your brain, your brain, the neurotransmitters and the chemicals that is going on in your brain and so on, hormones and so on. But in Islam, the loci of control of your being in this world and your being naturally in the hereafter, because we have life beyond death, beyond the physical existence. The loci of control is our qalb, and I will give you more definition of the nature of the qalb, the heart. And today science proved tremendously of how the heart controls the brain, and both conscious and subconscious, and also controls the nature of our being in this world. So what is important is that we understand this, and I'm going to play a video of our great scholar Sheikh Tariq Ramadan for you to understand the nature of spirituality, the psycho-spiritual basis for Islamic psychology, so that you will then understand this beautiful deen and also understand this beautiful Islamic psychology that we are trying to develop, and our version of cognitive behavior therapy, that is positive Islamic cognitive behavior therapy, inshallah will develop through our research and development as we go along, inshallah, in the future.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islamic Awakening with me, Raza Ghazim. Spirituality in some Western strands is seen to be something that needs to be recognized, but outside of the constrictions of any particular religious framework. But how important is spirituality in Islam?
In most Western countries, there is a growing trend where people no longer like to speak much of religion, except at the difficult or symbolic moments of life. Many claim not to belong to any religion, even if they believe in something, but the fashionable word is spirituality. The idea of spirituality now covers almost everything imaginable that could give a breath of life or give meaning. Islam doesn't view spirituality separately from everyday activities. In Islam, everything is spiritual because all actions must be in accordance with God's pleasures. This week, we went out and asked, what does spirituality mean for Muslims?
For Muslims, it's something more important because basically we have in our life we got two phases. One phase is material, is living, and second one is everything has to do with the soul. because we believe in second life after this one, then everything we do here has to do with this.
Spirituality, it is the days of joy when people find themselves when the God answers them and God delivers everything what they expect, everything. And that is the most important part of spirituality, is finding one-to-one with God and being honest with that power.
To answer this and other questions, I have Professor Tariq Ramadan with me today. Welcome to the program. Wa alaikum assalam. I wanted to ask you, first of all, how important, can spirituality exist outside of the religious framework?
What is important when it comes to spirituality is for us as Muslims to understand the definition, because the problem that we have in the West is very often spirituality is understood versus religions, and the problem is that we don't know exactly what spirituality is all about. From an Islamic perspective, this is important and very deep. It's a very deep teaching that we have from the very beginning of Islam, was the Prophet's companions, for example, some of them were more spiritual than others, but what does it mean exactly?
Before we go into that, can I just ask, what do you make of this attempt to consider spirituality? You said outside of the religious framework, because historically it is seen to be part of the religious framework. So is this something new, or is it historical?
No, it's not new. It's something that we had from the beginning. The problem is it's sometimes the people who are talking like this are confusing between spirituality and emotions. Is the way I feel, which the way I am with nature, the way I was with the environment, the way I can feel about life. Spirituality is not about this. So this is why I started by saying we can't go into this discussion if we don't start by defining the words that we are using. And in Islam, if you come to the Arabic language, you don't have one word to translate spirituality, because if you come to al-ruhaniyya, which has to do with al-ruh, which is the soul, and then what we have, يسألونك عن الروح قل الروح من أمر ربي وما أوتيتم من العلم إلا قليلا. They are asking you about the soul, and the soul is from the secrets of God, and you were only given little knowledge about this. So there is something which has to do with the ruh in you. It's this soul, the spirit in you. The second word is kunu rabbaniyin. Be imbibed, full of God's presence. Rabb, it's the Lord, so you have to be close. So you can understand here that the second word is connecting this life within with the Tawheed, which is the oneness of God. The second is come back to yourself. And there is a third word which has to do with tazkiyah. Tazkiyah is this purification of the self. And when you come to understand spirituality from an Islamic perspective, you have to connect the three words, the three notions to understand. One, there is a spirit within you that has to be connected with the Lord, with God, and the way you are going to connect with the Lord is through a purification process. So the soul inside needs an effort, a struggle with your own self to come close to Him. This is spirituality. This is the very essence of spirituality in Islam, and this is why it's connected with transcendence, with the oneness of God, with the very notion of Tawheed, and then it has to do with the purification process. And how are you going to go through this purification process? You go through this process by coming back to the rituals and coming back with this mastering, controlling yourself. So there is an effort to free yourself from your ego. Freedom comes with discipline. So this is where there is in Islam something which is a deep understanding of spirituality that cannot be disconnected from the religious framework. And in fact, the religious framework is the only way for you to free yourself and to go towards this spiritual experience.
But some people would actually argue quite to the contrary, and they would say that actually religion constrains you, and because the rituals constrain you from making that connection making that rub with
Yes,
God.
this is something that we can find in the West. And why? Because through a very specific historical experience, for example, if you look at Christianity, but even if you come to Islam, I will come back to this, but to look at they were so much focusing on rules, on the framework, on the rituals, that the rituals took the whole space and they were not connected to the meaning. So at the end, we are dealing with formalism, with this is what you have to do, this is the way you have to pray, and then the very meaning of what are you doing this? The very meaning of praying was just you pray because you have to pray. No, you pray to remember Him. You pray with a purpose. You pray with a meaning, and the meaning of thing is exactly what spirituality should be. So there is a historical experience saying religion came to impose a structure and to be empty of meaning. So what we have to do is to reconcile the meaning with the rituals. So for example, and this is what we find with some Muslims and some scholars today, they are so quick by saying halal, haram, do this, and it's all about formalism, it's all about the rituals, and you okay, where is my heart in all this? Yes, I have to pray 5 times a day. Why? Tell me which impact it has to do on me. It has to do on me something which has to do with the purification process, is the way you deal with your own self, to come back to the center. When you have a very powerful verse in the Quran, وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ, and remember that Allah intervenes. Allah's knowledge is between you and your own heart. What does it mean? Come back. So you pray to come back to the self, not just to come with the gesture. And then, look, we have it even in the Quran when the Arabs, the Bedouins, were saying, we are Muslim. قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا. We say we believe it. قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَكِنْ قُولُوا أَسْلَمْنَا وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلِ الْإِيمَانُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. No, say that you are following the rules, but faith is not entering your heart. So this is where it's very important for us to understand through what we listen to in the West. We say, religions are about structure. It could be true that we ourselves as Muslims are doing exactly the same. So for us, no spirituality without rules, but no rules without meaning. Because if there are rules without meaning, we are lost and we are creating a structure, oppressive structure, where it's all about limits and not about light.
Some of the tensions that you've described.
Alhamdulillah, we have heard our great professor Sheikh Tariq Ramadan giving us the idea of how we should link together our psycho-spiritual basis for Islamic psychology, because this is a modern view, all right, a great scholar, modern scholar, and this is the ancient view, and all this is based on the Quran and the Sunnah, and based on the writings of the research in the past. So as we move forward towards the development of Islamic psychology, again, we would have to marry the two together, that the basis of our existence is spiritual, that the loci of control is not the brain, is the qalb, which Allah repeats many, many times in the Quran, all right, in various forms, and we understand this so that we can develop a framework for Islamic psychology that works for all Muslims and all humanity, because we are all human beings. So if we understand the psycho-spiritual basis for Islamic psychology, and inshallah, as I develop the protocol for positive Islamic psychology, Pi-CBT, positive Islamic cognitive behavior therapy, you can understand which direction we are moving. And inshallah, with your input, your studies, becoming our certified coach, learning more about Islamic psychology and promoting it to the world, we would then be able to, inshallah, correct first the ummah that is now in a very bad situation, to an ummah that can lead the world in the 21st century, inshallah.